High-quality wireless video transmission systems have traditionally been very expensive. Now they're starting to come down in price, thanks to devices like the Hollyland Mars 400S. I've got one here, so let's take a closer look at it and see how good it really is. This is the Hollyland Mars 400S. It's a wireless HDMI and SDI video transmission system. They're fairly simple, straightforward looking devices. They have an all-metal construction, so you know they're probably going to be pretty rugged. They have an OLED display with 3 buttons underneath for sifting through the menu systems, which are easy to access by simply long pressing a button. The menu system itself is fairly straightforward. On the transmitter, you've got scene mode, which allows you to decide whether you want to transmit the highest possible image quality, go for the smoothest playback, or a balance of the two. In the system settings, you can set the language or pair it up with a receiver. And below that is just version information for the current firmware. On the receiver, the options are the same, except for the first one, which is a channel scan. So if you're shooting somewhere with a lot of potential interference, you can see which channels should give you a good strong signal. On one side of each unit, we have the HDMI and SDI video ports, along with a Type-C USB for updating the firmware. On the other, there's just a DC input jack and a power switch. On top of both of the units are a pair of connectors to which you screw on your antennas. Now, Hollyland actually includes an extra 5th antenna in the box, just in case you happen to lose or break one, which is a very thoughtful inclusion. Now, only one receiver is included in the kit, but you can buy extras individually, which is handy because the transmitter supports up to 2 of them at once. This can be quite handy if you want to have your monitor on your camera transmitting out to your focus puller who's stood off to the side and then transmitting onto your director who's sat watching from afar. Or you can stream to up to 4 Android or iOS devices, which can be very handy if you've got other people on set who need to see what's going on. With the app, they can take screenshots and draw little notes on them, and they can even record short video clips straight to their mobile device. Both the transmitter and the receiver are powered by Sony NP-F style batteries, or via the DC input jack, which takes between 6 and 16 volts, giving you a lot of different options for powering them. You can see on the transmitter that there is only one HDMI socket and it's an input, so there is no pass-through. If you want to be able to watch on an on-camera monitor and transmit it out to someone else at the same time, you'll need to make sure that your monitor has HDMI pass-through. Now, I'm normally using the FieldWorld F6 Plus monitor on top of whatever camera I happen to be using, which does have HDMI output. So I go from the HDMI socket on the camera into the monitor and then out from the monitor into the Mars 400S transmitter. Another great feature of the S6 Plus is that it has an 8-volt output, which means I can take a cable straight from the screen into the transmitter and power it off the single battery. You can see on both the transmitter and the receiver that there is an SDI socket next to the HDMI socket, and I know there's one big question that a lot of you are going to have. Can you plug it into an SDI camera and transmit to an HDMI monitor? And likewise, can you plug it into an HDMI camera and have it transmit to an SDI monitor? I contacted Hollyland about this because I don't have an SDI camera or monitor here to test myself, and they assured me that yes, both of those methods will work. You can transmit an HDMI camera to an SDI monitor or an SDI camera to an HDMI monitor. What I can tell you though is that HDMI to HDMI seems to offer a wide range of support for different signals. I've tested this thing on a laptop that only outputs 1366 by 768 resolution to a 4K TV. I've transmitted from a Raspberry Pi to a monitor on my desktop, and I've even tested it with a Blu-ray player going to the TV on the other side of the room. And it's not let me down with any of those things. And here's a setup that some of you might actually use. Here I have a camera plugged into the Mars 400S transmitter and the receiver going into the Elgato Cam Link plugged into my laptop running OBS. As you can see, the signal comes up just fine. This can be very handy if you're planning to do any kind of live streams and you don't want HDMI cables trailing all over the place, or you just have to have the camera at a bit further range than you'd like. And speaking of the range, one of the big features of the Mars 400S is the distance it's capable of transmitting. The clue's in the name, Mars 400S. It officially supports up to 400 feet with clear line of sight outdoors. When I tested this out on location though, I managed to get quite a little bit further. Alrighty, so here you can see we've got the D800 setup going into the FieldWorld F6 Plus monitor, and then the F6 Plus is going into the 400S transmitter. We've got the 400S receiver here going into the FieldWorld FW269. What we're going to do is we're going to go walk down there as far as we can and see when the signal starts to break up. So here we are right by the camera. So here we are, about 50 meters from the transmitter, and they're not moving very much, are they? They're moving a bit, but there's no kind of glitches or dropping signal, so we'll walk another 50. So here we are, about 100 feet away. The picture still looks smooth. The picture still looks really, really smooth. There's no glitching or artifacting. So now we'll keep going. Oh, we got to 150 meters and it's starting to lose it, or it has lost it. It's searching, but oh, there we go. It's got them again. They've disappeared. Where have they gone? It has connected to the transmitter, but now they're walking out of shot. So there we are at 150 meters. They've actually changed position. Oh, there they are. But we're still getting a good signal at 150 meters, which is quite amazing. We're at 175 meters now, and it's searching. We go 175 meters. It's established a connection to the transmitter. It is, I mean, it's like it loses connection, but then as soon as it connects, it seems quite solid. So now we'll go to 200. So here we are at 200 meters. And we have signal, and you can see there are like trees in the way. But now we're at 200 meters. And I can't remember if the 400 thing is supposed to be feet or meters, but 200 meters is like 600 feet-ish. But we'll keep going. So we're at 225 meters, and it's searching. And it's still searching, still searching. And still searching. 225 meters, it conked out, it wasn't getting anything. It could be that it was just out of range, it could be all the tree cover that's here, because it is pretty thick, but that was very impressive because I cannot imagine a time where I will be that far from the camera at all when I'm filming something. For some people there will be, like if you're doing like space shuttle launches and stuff, yeah, you'll want to be a good distance away from the camera. You'll probably be told to be a good distance away from the camera. But for 99% of what I do, I can't imagine ever being that far from the camera. So, as you saw, the range that this thing can cover is very impressive, and in the right circumstances, well above the listed spec. I mentioned earlier that you can connect up to 4 mobile devices to the transmitter, and this is where my only real negative about this unit comes in. When it works, it's great, it just doesn't seem to work with every device. Here I have a OnePlus 7 Pro that I've been using to test out this device, and it's got great cameras on this thing. It should have no problem whatsoever picking out the QR code on the back of the Mars 400S transmitter, which is how you pair it to your mobile device. But the app running on the OnePlus 7 Pro doesn't even acknowledge there's a QR code on the device at all. You can enter the code manually, but then it asks for a Wi-Fi password that it doesn't tell you what it is on the unit, and it's not in the manual. I did, however, manage to connect with my Zenfone 5, and this works really, really well, and it saves the network. So then I thought, hey, let's try scanning this network as a QR code with this one, and that logs onto the network fine, but then it still can't connect to the device. But as I said, I did get my Zenfone 5 to connect, and it worked really, really well. It offers a bunch of features like waveform, histogram, focus peaking, false colors, zebras, crop overlays, and individual channel view. And as I mentioned earlier, you can capture stills and write notes to them, or video clips. Like I said, when it connects, it works really, really well, but whether or not your device will connect or not is something you probably won't know unless you try it or you post online and ask if anyone else has tried it. But this is a minor thing which could probably be resolved pretty easily with a future app update, so it's not a deal breaker, especially as I don't normally watch from my phone anyway. Normally I'm using the receiver plugged into a second monitor. But other than that one little thing, the Mars 400S is a fantastic system. I often have cameras set up in places that I can't physically access all the time, like perhaps it's shooting wildlife, or I have the camera on a slider where I don't want wires trailing all over the place. So being able to monitor it wirelessly is massively useful, especially with the distance that this offers, although I can't imagine on a real shoot I will ever max this out. It also means that if I'm running multiple cameras for, say, an interview, I can have the transmitter on the second camera and a monitor set up on the main camera, and I can monitor them both without having cables trailing all over the place for people to trip over. It used to be that you'd have to spend thousands to get kit like this, but now you can get it for $650. Is it going to work for every type of user? No, probably not, because if it would, then the more expensive systems wouldn't still exist. Is it worth the $650 purchase price though? Well, if you're a low budget production and you need wireless video transmission at a low cost, then yeah, absolutely. This has been a very reliable system in the time that I've used it so far. I've had no lags or glitches or hiccups or issues of any kind other than the mobile thing. It helps that I'm mostly shooting out in the middle of the Scottish wilderness where there's very little chance of interference, but even here in this room with half a dozen computers and laptops and Raspberry Pis with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and other things going on, I've been having no signal issues whatsoever. There's an article to go along with this video over on DIYPhotography.net, so if you haven't already, be sure to go ahead and check that out. There will be a link down below. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to stay up to date on new videos as we put them out. If you have any questions about the Hollyland Mars 400, please drop them in the comments below and we'll get back to them as soon as we can. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.